Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Hope you're having a fantastic day. Today we're going to do a little bit of a review of the total control scheme and why I think it is a downgrade from skill stick and what we've been using in the past and why it creates so many problems for gameplay in NHL 24. There are a bunch of different components that they have to make work together to make gameplay fun. So there's deking, there's shooting, there's passing, and there's hitting. And the goal of Total Control was to make deking a lot more accessible, a lot more fun, a lot more easier to pull off for the everyday gamer who doesn't spend a lot of time perfecting the deking techniques of the skill stick. So that way he can pull off, the Michigan with one button press. And it does that very, very well. It does make deking a lot easier, a lot more fun to use. The issue comes in with the cost to that. So let's take, for example, line changes. Now line changes have been moved to the D-pad. And the issue with that is now you have to stop skating to change your lines. I'm not going to get into the bugs around changing your lines during gameplay, but when you have to stop skating to change your lines, it forces you to shoot the puck in, which the shoot in the video game is completely different than, in the real NHL, just because the AI players will get the puck faster, they'll shoot it out faster. It's not a sufficient time to change your lines. So you either have to waste an opportunity to force their goalie to make a glove save and hold it in order to change your lines, or play it risky to change your lines when you're doing the shoot in. So it's kind of a really poor mechanic to make your player stop skating to change your lines when the one player you're able to control is basically useless in order to change the rest of your players. That's one issue. The second issue is now when it comes to passing, they have this great kind of like NFL system, Madden system that they bring in where you want to pass it to a certain winger or receiver, um, and you have to click one button to make that pass. Great idea, fantastic. Execution though was really, really poor because when you're close, like for example, a center and the dot to a winger on the edge of the circle, the pass is just going to miss. It's going to be too hard for the winger to receive. It's going to go by them. And if you're too close to the net on the rush, instead of a cross crease pass, he's going to pass it behind the net, which the way it bounces is usually a miss in the pass. So you have to manually pass anything around the net, or anything close. It is fantastic for extended passes. That's great. But if it was designed to fix the passing system and make it easier, it was really, really poorly done in that case. Just because it's if anybody is more experienced on making manual passes, it doesn't matter. It's kind of a mute point. Then when it comes to shooting, shooting really hasn't changed. The only thing that really has changed is the reverse hit. So one of the biggest complaints of the community is reverse hitting when you're trying to take any type of shot. So the problem with reverse hitting is that when you click the stick, your player goes into a hit animation and then loses the puck because they're in a hit animation instead of trying to take the shot that you were trying to do. And usually because the game is so fast, it's a blown opportunity that you're not going to get back. And if you're playing on a competitive mode, or you're playing in hut where you have to play 30 plus games and you don't have, more than 40 hours a week to put into NHL, those types of moments where it's like you don't want to have to replay games because you have to play it on a harder difficulty in order to get the most points, because you're playing against other people on a leaderboard to get good rewards. It just kind of makes the gameplay hurt the player experience. So that's one issue. The reverse hitting just needs to be taken out. It just doesn't get used. I've never seen a YouTuber use it. The other issue with that button is the shove mechanic instead of the hit mechanic. So when you press up on your right stick, the player will go into a shove animation. And the issue is that it prioritizes that a lot of the time over shooting the puck when there's a loose puck. Now, granted, NHL24, the developers went in and said, you know what, this is a bug. We're sorry. We'll fix it so that when you're in front of the net, the guy will shoot the puck. Fine, but what about the rest of the ice? Like, if I'm in my zone and I'm trying to clear a loose puck and I swing at it, right, and clear it, that's great. But if I go into a shove animation and shove the other guy that's also going for the loose puck, not only am I going to get a penalty, but I'm not going to clear the puck. So it's just kind of like every time you go into a shove mechanic, you're going to get a penalty. There's so many times that I try to set up a one-timer. He does a shove animation instead, and then I end up taking either a cross-checking penalty or an interference penalty. It's just a very poorly thought out mechanic, and nobody thought to test it because it doesn't work. They weren't paying attention to it. And then that brings us to hitting, which is probably the biggest problem with the new control system. With hitting, you just have, in skill stick, you had a very clear way to make hits. You could line up hits properly. You knew exactly what you could and couldn't do. And you knew how to not take a charging call. You knew how to not take a boarding call. And when you did take one of those penalties, it was clear, okay, yeah, I deserve that. In this game mode, you're getting called for interference on missed hits with total control, just because it's like your guy goes into this weird animation that doesn't hit the guy. He gets by you, and you somehow get an interference penalty. It's a really big bug that a lot of people are having an issue with on Reddit right now. It's just the circle animation for hitting is just broken. Like I understand that a lot of YouTubers like it because it has a charge up effect, but the issue with it is that it doesn't hit consistently, and it doesn't hit the player the way that they should be hit. The physics are just all wrong. Like when you compare it to a hip check and the guy goes all over the place. A hip check, even a poorly hit one, will knock the player out longer than a properly hit regular circle hit. And it just, the physics don't make sense. The animations make it, slow, sluggish, doesn't work. It's just really, really difficult to pull off and learn. On top of it, it rarely works properly. So the whole hitting system, going from total control to skill stick, is just, total control is just such a step down for hitting. And that was what made NHL 23 fun to play, because you could go and smash guys. You can't do that in NHL 23. If you want to smash guys, you can reverse hit. and you can reverse hit from like any angle, or sorry, not reverse hit, but um, do a hip check, and it works from any angle, any speed. It's just very broken, and they took away like regular hitting. And the issue with hip checks is that you never take a penalty. Like you can hip check a guy in open ice, and you're not going to take a penalty. So it's just, they made two buttons to do proper hitting, um, and only one of them really work. And even then, it works too well, so it's not quite balanced properly. So if they definitely need to fix the hitting. I'm not saying the circle button doesn't work totally, um, but it doesn't work. The animation is just terrible, and the physics around hitting is terrible. They just need to fix it. The problem is I don't think they're going to do that. So it would just be easier to just go back to the old control system. With all the negatives around this new control system, the only redeeming quality of this control system is the fact that you can deke. So much easier without having to learn and practice. The issue with the deking system is that they punish you for using players that aren't good at deking, which is not necessarily a problem, but if you just made like one of the selling factors of your game as deking is now easier, you can do it on with, any level of experience playing NHL just by learning to press the button correctly. But in reality, you can only do it on like a handful of players because very few players in NHL have a good deke rating, just because they took Dangler as a player archetype out of the game. So deking is not a huge part of NHL anymore in terms of stats. There's very few players that have a high deke rating other than like McDavid or Zegras, right? If you have Zegras, the animation is like quick, easy. But even like if you're playing with Ovechkin should be able to deke the crap out of most players and goalies in the NHL. But he can't because his rating gets punished. And so the animation on Ovechkin is way too slow. So it's just, while it's a great idea, it's just very poorly executed. And so the frustrating part is just because all these YouTubers are like, oh, this is so awesome, just because it's change, right? And they look at any type of change is good. And that's not true. When it comes to making the game more fun to play, it doesn't make it different, because that is entertaining for like a week or two, but after that it's not fun to play anymore. There's so many players on Reddit that are complaining about this, and they're saying that they want to go back to skill stick just because of how many problems this new control system creates instead of fixes. So while there's a lot of great ideas around it, there's just way too many drawbacks in order to use it, and it makes gameplay that much harder when gameplay hasn't improved from NHL 23. It's just gotten a little bit different with the pressure system, and in my opinion, it has gotten worse. But I'll go into that in a different video. That's just my opinion. I think that skill stick is a way better system, just because hitting was better, passing was unpredictable, but at least hitting was in a good place and shooting wasn't being compromised by the new hitting buttons, and you're able to make changes on the fly, which you can't do anymore. So hopefully you guys, when it comes to playing Total Control, don't have as many issues as me, and you're able to pick it up faster. But I think those components of the new control system just make it inferior to the old one. Um, and I'm just sharing a lot of my thoughts as well as thoughts from people that I've talked to who play the game, um, both in my game circle as well as on Reddit. So anyway, that's my thoughts. Hope you have a good rest of your day and keep your stick on the ice.